good evening and welcome to another Friday night Bible study. Tonight we're coming to you from 158 West Englewood Avenue in Englewood, New Jersey, and we are the Northeast branch of the Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministries. As usual, I am Elder Kurt, and tonight I'm joined with
Jeffrey.
Jeffrey, welcome back.
Thank you so much.
He's a man from all parts.
All over.
Yeah, man. You were just recently in St. Louis.
Yeah.
Giving your thoughts in a great Bible study you did with your brother.
Thank you.
At that time. We always love having you here.
Thank you. I
in the
appreciate
Northeast area to come on with me and to lend your thoughts. I always get so excited when we have, a Bible study topic that we want to talk about.
Same.
This is a really, amazing time for us because we are in the month of Bib. We are in the Passover season, things like Feast of Unleavened Bread, all these things occur. We had a great New Year celebration, just things that really pick us up and lift us up. And one of the best parts about it is with what we do, when we look outside and we look at nature, not necessarily man and mankind, but when we look at nature, we see how nature mimics what the God of Israel put forth in terms of instructions and when the year starts and all those sorts of things, which we'll get into with our Passover lesson tonight.
Oh, yes.
But it just makes you feel good when you can look out in your environment around you and see that what you're doing is actually on the right path, as opposed to having a time to start anew when you can't even go outside
and see that. Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
In the midst of December and January, like how does that, even make sense at this point with us having so much information available to us?
For sure.
I fail to see how people still make sense of that.
That's so true. And I think too, like to see that just as we get excited, the birds start chirping, the flowers start blooming. So like nature is also excited about this
Absolutely.
time. And it sort of is a reminder for us as we step out to say, oh, this is a new season. It's a new time. It's a new year.
Yes.
Whereas again, if you're in the middle of winter and it's the same yesterday as it was today, it's hard to really, you know what I'm saying?
You're like, how's this different?
Exactly.
Just because we say it is. We put a time on it.
For sure.
So it is, a pleasure to see that sort of thing. And we also know that, with the Passover and the things that we do during that time of Passover, it's because we're giving the God of Israel gratitude for what he has done for us, what he's done for our forefathers, and even for us too, being able to, revive this culture and this tradition and just to keep it going. So when I think about that sort of thing, it just makes me really excited.
Same.
To be part of this family, to be part of this nation, and to just have that understanding.
Definitely. And to know that he gave us what we do. He gave us all the instructions. He gave us this time, the season, and we are just reflecting that in our actions now today, especially in 2022, to know that we're doing what our God said to do all those years ago.
Thousands of years ago.
It brings that connection to make it more real, I think, for us.
It's so true. And it's not like the sort of thing that we made it up. There's no one that can go back into history and say, oh, well, these people developed this at this time.
Right.
This is since time. Since biblical time. And we can see the origins of it, which is really what we want to, look at tonight, are the origins of that Passover. And, the great thing about this time of year and when these times come around, is that you get an opportunity to reflect, but you also get an opportunity to look forward. And in reflecting, one of the things that I remember, you're fortunate because you came into Israel at a time when you were a young pup, or a young lamb, I should say, not a young pup, a young lamb. And so most, if not, I don't want to speak for you, but most of what you, I'm sure, recall from your youth and your childhood, your early childhood, is centered around Israel. But for those of us that, came into Israel out of Christianity or out of darkness, like we remember those times when it was Easter and we would see stories about the Passover and not even understand the relationship there. But every year, the same story would be told. And even in that, we couldn't see the folly that was there. But the beautiful thing about this, and now being able to reflect, is now we get the opportunity to go back during this period of time and look at the actual stories and get that understanding. And like you said, see that connection between what we're doing now and what our forefathers did, all those thousands of years ago.
Exactly. And just to add that really quickly, I think it's kind of funny because, and I'm sure we'll get to reading it too as well, but even in the instruction of the Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread, there's a time when we even answer that question of why do we do this, And I think for us to, again, in 2022, to be able to still know the answer to that question is almost, it lets us know why the God of Israel thought it was so important to put that in there, to say, I don't want you to go all the way down the line, you guys forget why you do what you do, to the point where you're doing it just because it's tradition, but I want you to know really why are you doing what you're doing too as well,
Because you see so many people that, because they do things out of tradition, they don't even understand the origins of it. They don't even know the roots of it. They have no idea what the foundation of it is. But to your point, because the question is asked, we always know what the foundation and what the root of this is. So it's just a beautiful thing.
It is. Man, it really is.
So I hope you guys out there have your Bibles. Thank you so much for letting us into your home tonight. And we really pray that this conversation that we're going to have and this discussion that we're going to have, that you actually do get something out of it. And you can look at the world around you and see the misgivings, the things that are taught to you that are not quite consistent with what the instructions of the scriptures are, especially if you're one that is seeking. And if you are seeking, then the Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministries is the place to be. So hit the like, throw some fires, sevens. Click the link in the description box if you want to learn more about who we are and what we do and how we worship our God and his name and all those things. Because we're more than happy to share that knowledge, wisdom, and understanding with you. All you have to do is ask. Right?
Exactly.
Okay, so I think... it's a good time to get this book open, right?
Yes.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay, so we'll go to, let's feast. I like that. So let's go to the book of Exodus. All right. And we'll start in chapter 12. All right. And we'll just go from the beginning. Let's learn about our Passover.
To read this?
Go ahead.
All right. So Exodus chapter 12, verse 1. And the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, This month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you. Speak ye unto all the congregation of Israel, saying, In the 10th day of this month they shall take to them every man a lamb, according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for an house.
So just pause it there for a second, right? So, just to, give a little bit of background, right? Because we always want to know where we are in the scriptures and what's going on. I'm sure most of you out there have seen the, 10 Commandments movie and all those sorts of things. But here's Moses and Aaron. They are almost at the end of the plagues, right? The last plague is about to come. And the God of Israel is prepping them and telling them what they need to do to prepare, because once this last plague comes, that's it.
That's it, yeah.
Y'all got to be ready, right?
To get out of here.
Yeah. And on top of that, here he is telling them, this month shall be unto you the beginning of months. So we don't know what the rest of the world was doing, what time of year the rest of the world was keeping at this time. But we know that this instruction says that month will be the beginning. And we know that this month is the month Abib. If you look earlier in the book of Exodus, you'll certainly find that. Right. So here it is, this huge instruction. It's like, there's almost like a reset that's going on, right? Where the God of Israel says, okay, we're starting fresh. Yeah. This is like a beginning point for you guys. Right. All that stuff, from before, you're going to leave it behind. Now you know my name. You're going to teach them my name. And you guys are going to go out of Egypt and you're going to keep a service, a feast unto me, right?
Isn't that so funny, though, that, one of the first things that we get from the God of Israel is just the way that we are supposed to tell time.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And I think that's an important thing about being able to follow and do all these feasts is you have to be able to know and to see the time in which these things are supposed to be done, which again, I think is one of the important things, as we were saying in the beginning, that the nature and everything else reflects what we're doing. Because again, there's a season for all these things. We can't do Passover in January. You know what I'm saying? The season for is now, you know? So I think the fact that he gave us this first is, I think, very telling. You know?
Absolutely. Yeah. If you buy a plane ticket to go fly somewhere, you need to know when that plane is going to be departing.
Exactly.
When you need to be at a hospital, at the airport.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Because if you get there 2 days after your plane is supposed to be leaving, or 2 days before, you're going to miss it.
Exactly.
You're going to miss it. And if you miss it, whatever it is that you were intending to do, you're not going to be able to do.
Right.
So here it is, like you said, he gives us the schedule, right? And now we know the schedule, and now it's up to us to keep that schedule.
Right. It's up to us to keep that. And I think even to understand too that even as we're doing the physical part, I think to also understand that there's a spiritual part behind that. Absolutely. And all of that is based on time as well.
Exactly.
And as we always say, if you're late, the God of Israel is not going to stop. You know what I'm saying? So you have to, again, the time is very important in what we're doing, even in this Passover season.
100%.
You know, for sure. Definitely.
100%. And you can see that notion because in the chapter before, he's basically telling Moses like what's going to be happening.
Right.
You know, hey, this is what's going to be happening, and this is how it's going to go down.
Yes.
So now here's you and Aaron. This is what I want you guys to do.
Exactly.
And I love the way that this is such a personalized thing that happens. It's not the sort of thing that everyone was made privy to. He literally told Moses and Aaron. And then Moses and Aaron were going to go out and tell the children of Israel. Right. They weren't even going to go out and tell the world. So it's interesting when you see, you know, other nations, other cultures, and they claim this sort of thing, but yet when they do it, the timing is off. You know? That's
true. That's very true.
Or they don't know the name of the God of Israel.
Very true.
Something is off. You know, nothing ever comes together completely for them. But in the way that we function and the way that we do this, it all comes together, you know, into one beautiful picture. So
agreed.
Yeah. All right, where were we?
Okay, I think I was at verse 4, yes.
Okay.
And if the household be too little for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next unto his house take it according to the number of the souls. Every man according to his eating shall make your count for the lamb. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year. Ye shall take it out from the sheep or from the goats.
Okay. So again, looking at this is like the first Passover. Right? And we'll kind of get into, you know, why it's called, it will reveal itself as to why it's called the Passover, those sorts of things. But in terms of the instructions that are being given, you know, he's really like laying it out for them. You know, there's no ambiguity. That the God of Israel is kind of leaving here. Okay, you get a lamb, but it's got to be a lamb in the first year. It's got to be a lamb without blemish. You've got to divide it in the households, and you don't give too much, or you don't give too little. You give enough for that household to be able to handle, and then you move forward. Right. You know, everything is very specific and detailed. Right.
And the thing about that I love anyway is, I always say that, you know, when the Israelites came out of Egypt, as we left Egypt, again, we're just starting to get to know our Father again, you know? So we almost don't know what he likes yet, you know? And we have to be told, hey, this is how I like it. This is how I want you guys to do this feast. And I think it's very much a personal relationship for him to say, this is how I want you to do this for me, right? This is how I want you to worship me. And we have to be able to understand that, to be obedient to that, and not rely on our knowledge, because that's based upon Egyptian stuff, right? And if it was up to us, we would be, you know, building a calf or something, right? You know what I'm saying? So
yes, we would.
Yeah, exactly. So trying to get out of that and to say, you know what, let's listen to what the God of Israel wants us to do to worship him, not based upon our own knowledge.
Exactly. And it's a great point that you make, because again, part of the beauty of this is we can really relate to it in terms of things occurring at a certain time. And what I mean by that is this is Israel coming out of captivity in Egypt.
Right.
We are literally in this day and age, Israel coming out of captivity in Egypt.
Right.
You know, there are certain things that are the same.
Yeah.
Right. And in that, when we think about those notions, like, you know, I was talking to you earlier about you being a little boy, and most of the things you remember are about Israel because that's, you know, your memory bank. For a lot of us that came out of that, we were in Egypt.
Yeah.
The things that we learned were Egyptian principles.
Yeah.
So us now trying to apply those Egyptian principles to what the God of Israel was teaching us, we would surely stumble.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
We would surely stumble
Definitely.
if he didn't, you know, map it out for us. So in the same way we could see our forefathers in that time, even though Moses left and he was gone for 40 years, he was still Egyptian.
Yeah, that's very true.
You know, he was still an Egyptian man. They even called him an Egyptian when they first saw him when he, you know, came out of Egypt and went into the other land, into Midian. But Aaron was in Egypt that whole time.
Yeah.
So Aaron still is functioning on Egyptian principles, even though, yes, Goshen was that land that was in the midst of Egypt. And, you know, we did have I'm sure we had a semblance of a culture that was there.
Sure.
But again, a lot of that was still influenced because we were, you know, working and interacting with the Egyptians. It was the predominant thing that was around us. So like, and you said something very pointed on your last message. You said that in the beginning, it was like the God of Israel was building up his resume with Abraham and Abraham, then to Isaac, then to Jacob. And then when he reveals himself, then they know more of who he is. And that gives them, I guess, like more confidence to, you know, to follow. But he was building his resume. So now he has that resume. And he says, I am the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac and Jacob.
Right.
And so now they know who that God is. But like you were saying, they don't really know, you know, what his likes and dislikes are, how he, you know, wants things done. And here he is, you know, just pointing it out to him, you know, letter by letter, you know, here's what you do. So you see the beauty of it, that there's no ambiguity in what I want you to do. The 10th day, you get that lamb and you put it up. Okay. And you get prepared. All right. So let's keep going.
All right.
Wait, we're in 6?
6.
Yeah.
And ye shall keep it up until the 14th day of the same month. And the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening. And they shall take of the blood and strike it on the 2 side posts and on the upper doorposts of the houses, wherein they shall eat it.
Okay.
And they shall eat the flesh in it that night, roast with fire and unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs they shall eat it.
Okay. So let's take a pause there. Take a pause there for a second. So, you know, time, right? Because a lot of times we read these stories, and it's like, because we read it in 5 minutes, we figure it happened in a split second.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? But here we are. They take the lamb up in the 10th day, a special lamb, male, first year, no blemishes. And at that point in time, it's like you take it from the sheep or from the goat. Right? And then you keep it up until the 14th day. And now the 14th day, the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening. So the 14th day in the evening, the congregation is going to kill that lamb. So again, we think about it from the notion of the initial parts of the instructions, and it says you take the lamb, and then, you know, whatever you share it according to a man's house. So it's not the sort of thing where you necessarily see all of Israel going to like the center of, you know, Goshen, and everyone bringing their lamb there and killing, because you have all these, you know, households, right? So there is a way that is going to happen, where the lamb is going to be killed in the way that it's supposed to be killed, and then the meat is going to be shared amongst the household and neighbors that are close to each other, because they're neighbors, they're brethren, they're all in that, you know, compound by themselves. Again, you see the detail there, how specific things are, right?
And then even before they, you know, disperse the meat, also too, taking that blood and putting it on the doorpost as well. And I think that, again, we'll see will end up being a really important part of that instruction, you know?
Yeah.
But I think that too, again, it's those small things where at the time, maybe they had no idea why this was going to occur, you know? And then he says, well, this is why it's going to occur.
Yeah.
And sort of goes into the name Passover, right?
Right.
But again, I think, as you were saying, I definitely agree that I think, again, the timing of everything, don't kill it on the 11th day, the 12th day, the 14th, at even. All together, you guys are going to do that,
right?
And follow these instructions as I've instructed them. You know what I'm saying? With the unleavened bread and the bitter herbs, and everything. You know,
beautiful thing. And so then, so now the question is it the lamb or is it the blood?
right. Yeah.
Is it the lamb or is it the blood? What's what's the important thing here? What are they really? What are they really looking for? What did they get the benefit from? You know, what did they? And we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see what they got the benefit from. And again, here's your menu. You ain't got to think about it.
Right.
I got you. I will tell you what you need to eat.
Yeah.
Because I know Moses would have been raising his hand like, so they're gonna want to eat, right, God of Israel. So what we gonna feed them? What we, because he was the same guy that said, so what's your name? What am I gonna tell them when I go back and say your God? Came to me. Who am I gonna tell him sent me? Yeah. And the frustration in the God of Israel, I am that I am. But, Moses would have been the one like,
exactly.
Hand up, I got a question, right?
And knowing Jacobites, right, they're going to want the fried chicken and the oxtail. They're going to want all that stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, it's my last meal.
Exactly.
It's my last meal. We got to leave. I want to make sure my belly is full with some good stuff.
It's like, no, this is what the menu is for that night, But so.
Absolutely. So, you talked about the striking it on the doorpost, right? The top and the sides. And you're going to be inside. Once you do that, you're going to be inside. Right? And they shall eat the flesh in that night, roast with fire. I'm even telling you how to prepare it. Here's the recipe. And unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs shall they eat it. And you look at these things, you're like, wow, what kind of, menu would that be? But everything has like a purpose. Even the foods that they're going to eat, there's a reasoning behind. And it's the foresight that's in this too. Because as we'll learn the reason behind the bitter herbs. We'll learn the reason behind the unleavened bread. Those weren't just random things that the God of Israel told him to eat. And there was so much foresight that was involved in him sending this recipe out.
That is true. Like each thing, as you were saying, has a significance,
Yeah.
That is very true.
Yeah. Beautiful stuff, man. Are we in 9?
9, yes.
Okay.
Eat not of it raw, so the lamb, nor sodden at all with water, but roast with fire, his head with his legs, and with the pertinence thereof. And ye shall let nothing of it remain until the morning, and that which remaineth of it until the morning ye shall burn with fire. So I like this again for kind of the same reason. Again, it's the instructions of, don't think you're doing me a favor if you say, you know what, I'll boil it instead, do like a stew instead, No, this is exactly how I want you to cook it, exactly this way. And so much so that don't even leave it until the morning. Even how much of it to eat, I'm telling you, eat it all or burn it.
Get rid of it. Exactly. Yes. Exactly. And I love the way that, in verse 10 it says, let nothing of it remain until the morning. And that which remaineth of it you shall burn. So, okay, I'm telling you, eat it all. But whatever is left of it, you burn it.
Right.
Whatever you don't get through, or whatever you don't eat, or whatever is left of that lamb, you burn it. And I think, sometimes I like to look at we are very spiritual people, but there's a lot of physicality that's involved in our nation as well. You think about meat, right? So what's so good about lamb as opposed to letting it grow into a full-grown ram and then eat the ram? Right? It's bigger. It's got more meat
on it.
Right?
Yeah. That's true. That's
very
true.
It's bigger and it's more mature, and so the meat is a little harder, right? The lamb's a bit more tender, right? And when you roast meat as opposed to boiling it, when you boil meat, it breaks down more, so it's more tender and all that sort of thing, right? So with the lamb, you're already starting out with a little tender, cut of meat.
Yeah.
So to me, it's like the God of Israel. He knows it all.
Yeah,
he's thinking, okay, they're gonna be complaining about this ram is so tough and hard, and I can't, bite through, and it's like leather.
Right, yeah.
So let them have. That probably has nothing to do with it, but. It's just one of those things that you think the God of Israel kind of covers everything.
All bases, yeah.
All covers bases. All bases.
Yeah. And two, I also think about when he speaks about to, roast with fire, I always think about, like later on in the scriptures, he speaks about how he likes sort of the scent of the lamb and everything. I think about, again, the smell of lamb that's being roasted,
exactly,
as opposed to one that's being stewed. There's like a different potent smell that
Absolutely.
I know it's like, or at least in my mind, I'm like, the God of Israel must love this smell.
Yeah.
As it goes up there, you know what I'm saying?
Because you love it so much.
I love it so much
this
too.
Smell, this smells so good. I can't wait.
Yeah.
And it's interesting too how even for us as for a lot of children of Jacob, lamb wasn't something that we grew up with as part of our regular meal. Like you were making the joke about the fried chicken before, right? So those are the things like. When we were out there in Christianity and in the world, going by the culture of the world, lamb wasn't a cut of meat that I didn't even taste. I don't even think I tasted lamb until I got into Israel.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah.
And I basically had just about every cut of meat there is in the world. I don't think I ever tasted lamb before I got into Israel. And if I did, it might have been once or twice at a restaurant as a like a real delicate piece of meat, that sort of thing. But it wasn't like a regular in our diet. So it was a huge thing, coming and seeing this and partaking of the lamb and getting back to that part of the culture. It just made it all really beautiful and brought that stuff together because it felt like all those things that had been taken away from me, even up to the foods that I eat. And the foods that I savor was now being reintroduced to me. And it was the most beautiful thing about, my first Passover and getting in there and partaking of the lamb, because it made it that much more special. It wasn't something that I had had before, something that was regular to me. Like, we had like a bake. He could have said, take the turtle doves, make the chicken. But no, he chose the lamb. And even through the history of our people and the history of the scripture, you see this is the physical significance of the lamb, but then we get to the spiritual significance of the lamb as well. And so it just brings it all again. It's the sort of thing that just brings it all together so beautifully.
That's a really great point. And I think one of the things that you said too about in the beginning about just how much all of those things that are on the menu are very specific. It kind of also brings me to the point of, in today's context, 2022 as Black people, like I think what we eat is not always very mindful, and it's not always with intent of what the purpose of it.
It's not purposeful.
Exactly. Yes. And so I think not only that, but also to know that through our, enslavement, our idea of not only food, but our idea of the time and the seasons of things have also been changed a lot. So to, as you were saying, to come back to something now that you haven't done for generations to say, oh, this is how I should be eating and looking at time and all those things. It is a very revolutionary thing almost, you know what I'm saying? Or at least in a spiritual sense, right? To say, oh, I'm going back to this thing that is actually very purposeful and not sort of random and not sort of put on me by my master.
Absolutely. It's so enlightening.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because what story of slavery did you ever hear about where they talked about lamb?
Yeah.
That in itself is just it's such an enlightening feeling.
Right.
To be able to see that and to understand that they didn't even know about this. And when I say they, I'm talking about the slave masters and the Gentiles and all these people. They were so far removed from this. It's almost like the God of Israel protected it.
Yeah. That's very true. Because, again, they had the book, right? But they're eating.
Couldn't see that.
Exactly, eating the pork and turkey. You know what I'm saying? And I think for us, too, a lot of what we eat is based upon our ability to survive, you know? So now that we're coming out of sort of enslavement now, again, I think it's important for us to think about going back to a time of understanding the purposefulness of the times and of, again, the food that we eat as Jacobites as Israelites. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
sure.
Absolutely. And I love that point, man, because it's like, you hear the adage, you are what you eat, right? And now you see
exactly this,
how it how it plays itself out in this. And like you said, we ate to survive, because what did the slave master give our forefathers? The scraps. Now the scraps are delicacies in their finest restaurants.
Right.
They want to deconstruct chitlins, They want to deconstruct cornbread. They want to deconstruct, what they call it, hog maws, and you know what I'm saying, and pork feet and all these things, and the cornbread and even the fried chicken. Like all these things now are like delicacies to them, and these are things that we took from the scraps that they gave us. And now they turn them right back to the scraps they gave us. They want to eat the scraps and leave the other stuff behind. It's just amazing. It's just it's so beautiful, man. All right, where were we?
All right. All right, let's see. So I think we're verse 11, I believe.
11.
And thus ye shall eat it with your loins girded, your shoes on your feet, and your staff in your hand. And ye shall eat it in haste. It is the Lord's Passover. And here's the definition.
I'm sorry. I didn't want you to get to the yet, because before he even tells him why it is the Passover, he tells him it's the Passover.
Yes.
And then, like you were saying, knowing Israel, if they weren't given a specific, menu, they would,
whatever,
eat to the fill, and I got to go to bed now because I just ate so much.
Right. The itis and
they get the Israelites, and before you know it, it's like we're supposed to be going. Exactly. Why are you in bed? Why are you sleeping?
I love that.
So eat with a purpose. Eat with the intent of moving. Have yourself ready to go. Shoes on your feet. And I think, when I think about that, and then when we, fast forward to, when we look backwards to when Moses saw the bush, and he went to where the bush was, and he's like, wow, this burns, but it's not consumed. And that was his introduction to the God of Israel. What did he tell him? Take the shoes off your feet, because this is holy ground. Right?
Wow.
So now it's like, I don't want to say you're seeing the opposite, but now they're in their dwelling. And he's like, no, keep your shoes on. It's time to go.
Right.
So that they don't mix the two up. In terms
true.
of, wow, this is so holy. Like maybe we should take our shoes off while we're eating because we're given this instruction. But no.
That's so true.
Keep your shoes on. Let's get ready to go.
All goes back to the idea of don't rely on your own understanding. You know what I'm saying? Don't try and make anything to you what seems logical. Because I could definitely see Israelites saying, oh no, this is a holy time.
We're going to get super holy on this.
Exactly.
Get your whites on, guys.
Exactly. And doing all that and not realizing, but what's the purpose? And I always go back to that. It's never about, it's about understanding what's the purpose behind the thing. And I think that's so important why the God of Israel is saying, again, do all these things for it is my Passover. It's the Lord's Passover. And there's a reason behind every single detail I'm telling you. Don't try and be smart and make anything else up. I'm telling you exactly what to do, So, I just love that.
Absolutely. And again, if if we put ourselves in that situation, all these things that are happening in Egypt has destabilized the country, like big time, right? And people are afraid, and they are likely afraid of the Israelites because all this stuff is happening in Egypt, but yet the Israelites aren't being affected. Like, what's so special about them? But the Israelites themselves, if these things start happening in the world around us, even though we're protected, there would be we wouldn't be completely comfortable.
That's true.
You'd be at least a little nervous. I know I would be. I'd be a little nervous. I'd be like, oh, thank the God of Israel. But there would be some nerves, And these are instructions being given to Moses and Aaron. So the other people in Israel, they don't even know these things, right? Not yet. So there's all this trepidation that's going on, all this nervousness that's going on. And he, at the same time, is giving these very specific ways in which things have to be done. Now, when we do it and we keep that feast, we keep the feast of the Passover, there's a whole bunch of joy and gladness that we keep it with that probably wasn't really part of what they were doing on that night.
That's a good point.
Because that was a scary night.
Exactly. They almost, again, they're sort of, everything that they're going through is in the moment.
Exactly.
And they don't know what the God of Israel knows of how it's going to end up.
Yeah.
So they're going through it, as you just said, sort of not really like, okay, I mean, I'm seeing what has happened.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm scared already.
Right.
I'll follow,
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a really good point that now we look at it and we can look back and say, thank the God of Israel that this occurred.
Yes.
But at the time, I wonder the fear that must have been in them, the uncertainty in them. And I think even the idea of having your shoes in your feet and eating in haste and all those things, I could even see them in the moment, not even having the appetite to really like relax,
right? Exactly.
Because something's going on. Exactly. Exactly.
You know because where was the prophecy that said this is how you're going to come out of Egypt?
Yeah.
There was no prophecy that was there for them that said the Lord would come with 10 plagues.
Exactly.
We can look back now and we see these scriptures and we see prophecy that relates to our time. So when we, when certain things happen, there's a certain amount of comfort that we get because we can actually say, oh, wow, okay, Isaiah said this. Or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They didn't have that luxury.
Yeah.
They did not have that luxury.
Right,
they were just literally going through the play-by-play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, even with us in 2022, we had the prophecy of, coming out of this Egypt.
Yes.
But even us we still have a hard time of trying to get back to what we have to get back to. Because again, there is a lot of uncertainty still. Like, is this the prophecy? Is this, there's always that too. So I think.
So even with benefit of prophecy.
Even with the benefit that you're still having the anxiety there of like not being able to see it because you're in the moment.
Right.
So maybe 100 years from now, people will look back on our coming out of Egypt and say,
exactly.
Right
there.
Exactly. You know what I'm saying? So
yes.
That's great. That's great.
For sure. All right. So it is the Lord's Passover.
All right. It is the Lord's Passover, verse 12. For I will pass through the land of Egypt this night, and will smite all the firstborn of the land of Egypt, both man and beast. And against all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment. I am the Lord. And I just want to stop there really quickly because I love this verse a lot because a couple reasons. The first one was, we spoke about in the beginning of this chapter, like the timing is everything. And you're doing the things that you physically can do, like what you're eating, what you're wearing, and where you need to be. But behind all that is a spiritual reason, and I think for us to realize, if you try to leave on the 13th, maybe the God of Israel is not going to be there to fight the gods of Egypt. If you try and leave on the 16th, maybe it's not, you know what I'm saying? But
they're playing the left.
Exactly, left already. Yeah. But when you do this at its exact time, that's when the spiritual side, I will be fighting the gods of Egypt too as well.
Right.
And that's when you have the best chance to do what you got to do, So I think for us, even understanding, things like the new moon and the Sabbath, knowing the timing of things is always important for us as Israelites, So I think that's why this verse in particular I love.
Beautiful.
And in addition to that too as well, I just love that again he's saying, I am the Lord. So even in this moment, I love that, again, if we look at the context of this from from this point all the way back to Adam and Eve, right? The world has forgotten who God is.
Right.
They've forgotten who the Lord is.
Yes.
Not just a Lord, but the Lord is. And so the God of Israel has to constantly remind, like, you don't understand, I am the Lord. I am the one that created heavens and earth. I am the God,
Right.
And I love that he uses this moment to say that, like, you're going to see that against all the gods you think that have blessed Egypt so well, the most powerful nation on the face of this earth, but I am the Lord.
Absolutely.
I just love that. I love that a lot.
This is why I love having these conversations with you, man, because you open my mind, you open my eyes to these things, because your point is so well taken. He said, I'm going to destroy the gods of Egypt.
Yeah.
Right? And the gods of Egypt, the things we can't see are most oftentimes even more powerful than the things that we can see.
Most certainly,
So they would gird up and try to be leaving. And if those gods are still, out there and functioning, they would be stopping them. Whether they would be using Egypt's army to stop them, or whatever they would be using to stop them, they wouldn't be able to do it without the power of the God of Israel. Exactly. Like you said, he says, I am the Lord, because they grew up in this culture where they looked around them and they saw these people that worshiped all these different gods, and they knew they had that God.
Yes.
Because I'm sure they had stories of their forefathers and Joseph and all those sorts of things. And they knew that they had the God that was the creator of heaven and earth. But they hadn't ever experienced his power in that way.
Definitely, yeah.
You know? So now it's like the coming out party, man.
Yeah.
He's coming out. Exactly. I'm coming out.
Exactly.
I am the Lord.
I love that. Yeah.
So yeah, it's really well taken that it's so important for us to understand the times and the seasons, because things happen and people say this, almost flippantly, like everything in its own time. But it's so much more significant when it comes to us as Israel, because we truly have the understanding, or at least we have the instructions of what time is supposed to look like.
Yes, exactly. And you know what this kind of reminds me of too is looking back in our history, even in this more modern slavery, we think about all the rebellions that occurred with slavery. Yeah. And although we can look at some of them and say there were some maybe small successes where 100 people were freed or whatever, in the larger picture, it almost wasn't time, you know what I'm saying, for that to be overturned and for us to be at, come to our true definition of freedom.
Yes.
And even again, all the things that we, that occurred even afterwards with segregation and sort of all those things. Again, it wasn't our time to really have that freedom that we really needed. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I think the God of Israel is saying, but I will give you the freedom in this specific time. Right. You know what I'm saying? And because again, that spiritual backing is going to be there. Right. Physically, right? Even for Black people in the in this country, to even think that physically we're such a small percentage of the population. Physically, it's almost impossible. For us to really have any real progress, right? Yeah. It needs a spiritual backing to say, oh, that was certainly not a physical move. That was definitely the strength of the God of Israel. So I just think there's a lot of correlation there.
Yeah. That's so true. Yeah. Because you think about what we just said. If in Egypt they try to leave on day 13 or day 12, well, that's what the rebellions were about, right? Exactly. Because they didn't have the benefit of understanding the prophecy and even the benefit of knowing who they were. They didn't understand that, no, you got to stay there for 400 years. Yeah. You've got to undergo this punishment for 400 years, and ain't nobody letting you out before 2019.
Nobody,
Try as hard as you want to.
Exactly.
You're not getting out. Yeah. So all the efforts that you make before that will just be preparation for 2019. Yeah. It ain't going to get you no further than just preparing for 2019. So, you think about Nat Turner. Like, if he knew, like, listen, y'all, I know y'all want to go, but it ain't 2019 yet, so it's right here.
Exactly, And, the same thing even applies to going into enslavement, too. Again, not to get too off track, but even I think about Jeremiah, and it's like, guys, the sentence is the sentence. You know what I'm saying? You have to go in a certain time and you'll leave a certain time. Yeah. You can't fight it. You know what I'm saying? I think the same thing here is saying
beautiful.
The timing of everything is so important. The Passover I put for a reason, because spiritually I'm going to be there helping you to get out of enslavement at this particular time.
Yeah. I am the Lord. You can't do this without me.
Exactly.
All right.
Okay, so verse 13?
Yes.
Okay. And the blood shall be to you for a token upon the houses where ye are. And when I see the blood, I will pass over you, and the plague shall not be upon you to destroy you when I smite the land of Egypt. And this day shall be unto you for a memorial, and ye shall keep it a feast to the Lord throughout your generations. Ye shall keep it as a feast by an ordinance forever. Forever. That word, I should
what can we
underline
say?
That word, bold it, circle it.
Right. What can we say, right?
Yeah.
There's no ambiguity to that. And we start seeing, more of the importance of the components that were put into the Passover. Yeah. The blood, why is the blood being put on the doorpost? Why is the blood being put on the doorpost, Moses and Aaron? This is why it's being put on the doorpost. So that you think the God of Israel didn't know where the children of Israel were?
Yeah.
Of course he did.
Right.
Do you think the destroyer didn't know where the children of Israel were and where they dwelt?
Right.
Of course they did. They had Goshen.
Yeah.
He protected Goshen through all that.
Yeah.
So he knew where they were.
Yeah.
But it's like we say with everything else. In order to get the blessings from the God of Israel, you got to put the work for it.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
And this is the work he wanted to see them do.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Sacrifice that lamb.
Yeah.
Put the blood on the doorpost. Now when I see that blood on the doorpost, I will know where I'm going to pass over and not destroy you with the plague while I'm smiting Egypt.
It's so funny, I think it's just so funny, I think, just to go on what you're saying too as well, again, putting in that work and him revealing to Moses the reasoning behind things. Like, I want you to understand. I really want you to get it. And I really want you to again, put away that old Egyptian things. And, I want for you to eventually, we can have these discussions as, father and son, and we can, talk about it in a sort of a in-depth way. But until then, look, here's why, here's what we're going to do, follow these instructions, you know? And additionally, I also love that he specifically makes a point to say that this is going to be kept forever.
Yes.
Forever.
Absolutely.
Right? I don't care where you are, what you're doing. This is kept forever.
There's no like asterisk or forever only if or forever when you're there or forever if the situation, presents itself. It's forever, period.
Period, forever,
period.
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 I
right?
love it.
There's no ambiguities. And then, so it's just so weird to me now that I have this sort of understanding to hear, others that realize that they're Israel say, well, no, that doesn't need to be done anymore. Or this doesn't. Wait, what?
Right,
So let's put a pause there for a second, because we do know there were times in our history where our forefathers forgot this forever. Right? So I want to kind of take a look at,
definitely
a couple of those things. And then, if we have time, we'll come back. I think the point has been made about how the Passover was going to occur on that first night.
Definitely.
Because the rest of this sort of speaks to, once that first night is done, what are you going to do after? Right? Because we know the Passover is a season, but he just said, y'all got to be gone. Keep your shoes on, get your staff, eat in haste, because in the middle of the night, y'all gonna be going.
You gotta go,
Okay? So everything else that you do is not gonna be in Egypt. It's gonna be, somewhere else.
Exactly.
Okay?
Exactly.
So let's put a pin in there for a second. Verse 14.
I want to say this, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry. In verse 13, I also really like that he's saying, and this shall be a token unto you, because again, I think when it comes to Israel, the God of Israel is constantly saying, look, this is going to be something that forever will be between me and you. He does it with this. He did it with the Sabbath, with circumcision. These are things that, again, as you were saying, the world can have this book. But the world doesn't really know to do it in this particular way, even though they can read the words. And therefore, more evidence to say, it's not for them. It's for those who have given this to. It's between me and you. That's all I want to say.
Absolutely. And it goes back to the personalization, that this instruction is being given to Moses and Aaron for the children of Israel.
Right. Exactly.
He didn't say it's going to be a token for the whole world to start doing. He said it's going to be a token between me and you. Right? So I'm going to know where you are, and I will save you.
Exactly.
Oh, man, I'm telling you. All right. So, who you want to talk about first? We got, a couple options here where we can go. So, what are your thoughts?
I'm thinking I really like the story of Hezekiah.
Okay.
I think that story in particular, to see them bring back the Passover in that season, and also the way that they have to do it to be a little bit different too as well. I like that story a lot.
Okay. So where are we headed?
2nd Chronicles, chapter 30.
2nd Chronicles. Okay. Let's see. You said chapter 30?
30,
Chapter 30, okay.
And just again for some context, Hezekiah is the king here, and he's essentially he's a good king, right? And he's trying to get rid of some of the bad that happened before and bring back some of the things that were lost previously as well, to sort of get them back into worshiping the God of Israel as we should.
And he just kind of comes into the kingship, right?
Exactly.
It's not like he's been king for all these years or anything of that sort. He literally kind of just comes into the kingship. And Hezekiah, if I'm not mistaken, by the time Hezekiah comes around, I think Israel was already in captivity, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe a lot of them were. I believe so.
Right? Yeah. So here's Judah still barely hanging on, right? Judah's holding on. But Israel is in either case they're in disarray. The nation itself is in disarray. All right. So you want me to read since you we'll kind of switch it off a little, let you rest your voice. All right. So chapter 30, right? And Hezekiah sent to all Israel and Judah and wrote letters also to Ephraim and Manasseh that they should come to the house of the Lord at Jerusalem. I'm sorry, they weren't taken into captivity yet. Israel wasn't yet.
Right.
Yeah. They were still there, but they were not as together as they
Judah.
should. Yeah. Okay. For the king had taken counsel, and his princes. To keep the Passover unto the Lord God of Israel. For the king had taken counsel, and his princes, and all the congregation in Jerusalem, to keep the Passover in the 2nd month. You want to talk about that for a second?
Yeah, we should. Again, I think it's very difficult to understand because we just spoke about before, right?
Yeah.
Timing is important.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
But I think in this particular situation, we have to understand, too, that a lot of what they had been doing before is contrary to Israel altogether.
Absolutely.
Contrary to all that the God of Israel wants us to do. And so in this particular time, he's saying, hey, look, I'm realizing now we have to do this thing. And I think he'll explain, too, but we're not ready to do it in that first month yet.
Right.
We can't do it properly in that first month.
Yeah.
But I'm so filled with so much zeal and love for my God that I know that it has to be done,
Yeah. And on top of that, this was actually a provision that the God of Israel wrote into the law.
That's true as well.
That if you can't, and there were very specific things.
Right.
If you're dead or you're off far away in some faraway country and you can't keep the Passover in the first month,
you go in the second
you
month.
keep it in the 2nd month.
Yeah.
So when you think about that, the dead is unclean, right? And that's why he wanted to keep that away from the Passover. Everything that Hezekiah was doing was to get rid of all these false gods that they were worshiping. So everything around was unclean.
Yes. And imagine trying to do the Passover in that, right?
In that environment.
It's impossible to do that, right? Impossible. Yeah.
You couldn't even do it right.
Yeah, exactly.
So he knew in his, youth, but in his wisdom, that he had to make the environment clean.
Yes.
Because what's the point in keeping the Passover in an unclean environment when that spirit won't even come and dwell amongst you because you're in that unclean environment?
Yeah.
So he put things together in the right way. And I think it's so telling that even on top of that, he had to write to Israel.
Yeah. To remind her, hey guys, let's get together,
Yeah, we gotta get together to keep the Passover to Israel and to Judah. So even amongst the cities in Judah, he had to write to them, tell, hey, listen, and part of it is, like you said, is the 2nd month, right? And they're like, what are you talking about? Keep Passover? It's supposed to be last month, right? But that he had to do that to get them all together because the God of Israel again sees us as one. He wants us to be one son, one nation. To get them together to come to keep the Passover is telling in itself, and it speaks to how much in disarray, how disjointed Israel was at that point in time.
Definitely.
So where were we? Verse 3.
Yeah.
For they could not keep it at that time because the priests had not sanctified themselves sufficiently, neither had the people gathered themselves together to Jerusalem. So it explains itself. You couldn't keep it in the first month because they just weren't ready.
Right, exactly.
That's the bottom line.
Exactly, yeah.
And the thing pleased the king and all the congregation. So they established a decree to make a proclamation throughout all Israel, from Beersheba even to Dan, that they should come to keep the Passover unto the Lord God of Israel at Jerusalem. For they had not done it of a long time in such sort as it was written.
Wow. So, and I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I think one of the things that I think to think about too, as we always say, is look at the historical and sort of the human factor of things, and to say, like maybe there were some that tried to do something that kind of resembled it.
Yes.
Maybe during that time they ate different type of cakes and bread and crackers and stuff, right? Maybe they prayed more during, like whatever they did, but it was not done like it was written.
Exactly.
Maybe some people tried to and weren't able to do it in that same way. Maybe only particular families did, but they were not able to do as it was written. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely, yeah.
And I think, as we just said, that ability to follow the instructions exactly, there's no sort of, doing something halfway, you know? This is the Lord's Passover. We have to go all the way to really make sure we're doing as the instructions say to do.
Yeah, you got to go all in. And I think that's a great point, because these words aren't put here just randomly.
Yeah.
And it specifically says, for a long time, they didn't do it in the way that it was written.
Yeah.
For a long time, they didn't do it in the way that it was written.
Yeah.
So maybe there might have been splinters of Israel still trying to keep some semblance of a Passover, because it was, the nation had just become so unclean.
Yeah.
They had just led all these, false gods into and infiltrated into Israel, that the whole nation was unclean, and trying to do something like that in the type of environment that they were in just wouldn't lend itself to doing it the right way.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So verse 6. So the post went with the letters from the king and his princes throughout all Israel and Judah, and according to the commandment of the king, saying, Ye children of Israel, turn again unto the Lord God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, and he will return to the remnant of you that are escaped out of the hand of the kings of Assyria. And be not like your fathers and like your brethren, which trespassed against the Lord God of their fathers, who therefore gave them up to desolation, as ye see. So there's the there's the point, that they had been taken and scattered, and taken into captivity, and now they're kind of back into their cities, and he's trying to put them back together. And I just love the way it's written. He sent the letters. You can see the horses out there going out, because there's no UPS and FedEx and all this sort of thing. All these things take time to get out, but the word gets out to Israel. Don't be like your forefathers, which trespassed, which didn't obey the instructions of the God of Israel. Don't be like that, but turn back to the God of Israel, so that he will help to bring us back together as a family and as a nation.
And I think I love this too, verse 6, because too, I think a lot of times, especially in our modern day, people are always trying to, as I said before, like trying to make the idea of, hey, how do we get out of oppression? How do we get out of this, brutality, or this, injustice here?
Yes.
And here he's saying, look, you're suffering a lot of injustice by the hand of Assyria.
Yeah.
Let's do the Passover.
Right.
Something so simple. I think it gets complicated because we're so focused on the surface level, the political sort of the world, but if we focus on that spiritual part, we realize, look, guys, let's go back to the Passover, and the God of Israel will take care of that for us.
Exactly.
Right? So I think, again, it's the application of what the God of Israel instructed us to do has real application to us getting out of bad situations too as well. There's no complicating it. Following the God of Israel's law, even if it may not seem like it's connected very directly, will inevitably help you get to true freedom.
Amen.
Help you to be successful in your life is going back to the God of Israel's law, statutes, and commandments.
Right. Back to the basics.
Back to the basics.
Just keep it simple.
Don't complicate it. Exactly.
Right. Just keep it simple. And it's interesting, your point about the spiritual aspect of things, because I think back to what we just read in Exodus. And as he's giving Moses and Aaron the instructions, what are one of the I don't want to say the last thing, but one of the last things he says is what? I'm going to destroy the gods of Egypt.
Very good point.
Right?
Yeah.
That you're going to do these physical things, but there's an aspect of it that you can't even fathom.
Yeah.
That I'm going to have to take care of. But here's your part.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And when you do your part, then I'm going to do my part, and we're going to meet in the middle.
Right.
I'll see you in the wilderness.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
Let me take care of that. And the same thing here that, like you're saying, Hezekiah is saying, listen, if we don't get back to the God of Israel, you think we're having a hard time now with the Assyrians and all these other people that are around us. You think we're having a hard time now. Let us not get back to him and see where we end up.
Yeah.
But if we do get back to him, all this hard time that you're feeling now, that stuff is going to go away.
It's resolved, yeah.
Don't do what your forefathers did. Don't do not even what your cohorts are doing right now, right?
Yeah.
Because there's still a whole bit of Israel that's not, worshiping and following the instructions and being obedient to the God of Israel.
Right.
And he tells them, listen, man, all you got to do is just get back to the basics. The Passover is basic. So, okay, let's keep going. Where did I stop?
I think you were 7, yeah.
I did 7. Okay, let's go to
7,
8, right? Now, be ye not stiff-necked as your fathers were, but yield yourselves unto the Lord, and enter into his sanctuary, which he has sanctified forever, and serve the Lord your God, that the fierceness of his wrath may turn away from you. So all this time you're thinking, oh, it's the Assyrians that's doing this to us. But who is it really? The Assyrians are just a rod.
Right.
The God of Israel is just using them as a tool.
Right.
But that's who really is punishing you right
exactly.
now. And that's where all this is coming from.
That's who we need to appease in this moment.
Exactly.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I don't know if you want to skip down to 15.
Let's do that.
Yeah. I think it's close to them actually having the Passover there.
All right. Let's go. Then they killed the Passover on the 14th day of the second month. This is verse 15. Then they killed the Passover on the 14th day of the second month, and the priests and the Levites were ashamed and sanctified themselves, and brought in the burnt offerings into the house of the Lord. And they stood in their place after their manner, according to the law of Moses, the man of God. The priests sprinkled the blood, which they received of the hand of the Levites. For there were many in the congregation that were not sanctified. Therefore the Levites had the charge of killing the Passovers for everyone that was not clean, to sanctify them unto the Lord.
That's so funny because, again, if we go back to the instruction in the beginning, every person or every household was going to have a lamb and kill a Passover and all those type of things. And at this point, there were so many people that couldn't do that because of their uncleanliness and and again, it just blows my mind to see them overcome with the emotion to say, I'm so ashamed that we forgot to do this. That we stopped. Again, not just like the ordinary people, the priest and the Levites were ashamed.
Exactly.
And I think that too is almost how I think, even though, as you mentioned, I sort of grew up with this a lot, even I can feel that shame sometimes when I look out in the world and I see my people not doing the Passover. And I'm like, man, imagine if we all understood this. Imagine if we all knew to observe the Passover and to go back to our God during this season and this time. Because again, there is something about this season that is spiritually we may not be able to understand, but our God of Israel is saying, during this time, I'm going to back you, And think about the progress we can make as a people if we understood the importance of this time of Passover, right? And how much more closer to freedom we would truly be.
Amen. And it is the sort of thing that really is painful, right?
Yeah.
It hurts when you see your people doing that, especially as you see your people turning to the alternative.
Yeah. Oh,
because that's the thing about the other side too, is they always give you another option.
Yeah.
When you think about something like an Easter, why wouldn't and I understand now that Easter, has been connected to Jesus, right? And that's where the whole notion of it comes. But we all know, and we look at the history and we know that Easter and the celebration of Ishtar was long before Jesus was ever born. Isn't it interesting that it happens at this time of year? It could have happened in what is February now. It could have happened in, the summer. any other time.
Yeah.
But it happens in such close proximity
Yeah.
to our Passover
Yeah.
that if you were not of the understanding, you would be fooled.
Yes,
and we see the whole world being fooled like that, especially our children of Jacob, that they literally attach this to Jesus.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's, that's a big reason why they do it. Big reason why it's, it's such a huge thing. But imagine if that was somewhere that was far off, that option wasn't there.
Yeah.
And the Passover was the thing that was in this season.
Yeah.
Even that in itself would make it easier.
A little bit easier, yeah.
You would think.
You think, yeah.
To show the children of Israel, children of Jacob, where the God of Israel is and who the God of Israel is. But again, the counterpart, man, Lucifer ain't stupid.
Yeah.
He's not called subtle without good reason.
Right.
Come on, man, you got to give him an option.
Something. Yeah.
You give them an option, they'll take it.
Exactly, they'll take it.
I'm telling you, give them an option, they'll take it, right?
Exactly.
And that's what our people did.
And I just don't understand, especially in this day and age, like if you can go back and read Exodus chapter 12, and it says, "And keep this forever," and your Christian pastor has not even mentioned the word Passover.
Right.
How do you correlate the two, right? Forever.
Yeah.
And yet in 2022, your pastor has not said anything about the Passover.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah. But yet, you're fueling up his jet plane, though. He's got that G5 ready to go from your offerings. From your offerings. All right. So, I think, we kind of get the point of Hezekiah and the second Passover and how the Passover was even lost at that time. Who else can we look at, man?
I think we can go into Josiah.
Okay.
Josiah, he's a couple chapters forward in chapter 35.
All right. 8 years old when he began to rule,
8 years old
right?
when he began to rule, yeah.
Wow,
very
what
young.
kind of wisdom can you have as an 8-year-old if that spirit is not with you?
Exactly.
Amazing. So you said chapter 35?
35.
Okay. All right, you can take this one.
All right. Moreover, Josiah kept a Passover unto the Lord in Jerusalem, and they killed the Passover on the 14th day of the first month. And he set the priests in their charges, and encouraged them to the service of the house of the Lord, and said unto the Levites that taught all Israel, which were holy unto the Lord, Put the holy ark in the house which Solomon the son of David, king of Israel, did build. It shall not be a burden upon your shoulders. Serve now the Lord your God and his people, Israel.
Okay. We got to take a pause for a second, right? Because as you're reading this, it brought me back to the priests and the Levites being ashamed during Hezekiah's time. Because now here we are again. Josiah rediscovered these things, right?
Yeah.
Rediscovered the Passover
just
because
5 chapters later.
Yeah, right. Exactly. In just that short time in history, again, the Passover was lost. Yeah. Right? The instructions were lost.
And, I think that's an important thing, too, to say, is there's no coincidence that the Passover does get lost.
Mm-hmm.
The other side does not want you to observe the Passover, specifically because, again, there's something about that Passover that is connected to your success, right?
Yes.
And if you forget about the Passover, then of course, you can't be successful. You know what I'm saying? So I just want to make that correlation too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it speaks to Israel not really hearing what Hezekiah was saying at that time.
Exactly.
Let go of all those other things, and the difficulties that you have will be gone because you will be reconnected with your Father.
Yes.
But instead, they continue to go towards that physical. And when Hezekiah was no longer, then they turned right back again to these other gods.
Exactly.
And that's where forever gets lost.
Yeah.
Because part of the forever is, like you said, this was going to be a token.
Yes.
For you to remember. Part of the instruction was that the young boy asked the question, why do we keep the Passover? Right? And those things were supposed to be passed down from generation to generation. That's how forever was proliferated. But it didn't happen. And forever continued to be interrupted. Right? Continued to be interrupted. So instead of forever, you have
exactly.
You know?
It's like a constant rediscovery.
Right.
And it's almost very sad because I feel like with a constant rediscovery, you can never really tap into the true potential of it. Yeah, you can't progress, right? Because you're constantly getting, forgetting, forgetting. You know, and I want us in 2022 to stop that cycle.
Absolutely.
Let's get on with the Passover and let's keep it forever.
That's right.
You know,
that's right.
For sure.
Because I mean, I could see the God of Israel just rolling his eyes like, oh gosh, again I have to do these with these people. How much further along, how much more powerful could they be if they had just stayed the course? Be consistent. Not forget. Don't turn to the left or to the right, but stay forward. So I think it's so telling, like you said, that in this day and age of 2022, 2019 was the end of the 400 years. Now we are in our time. We are in our freedom. And people like to, want to look at this from a physical standpoint, right? But we're talking about a spiritual emancipation here. A spiritual awakening that should be occurring. But you can't have the spiritual awakening to occur if you're not doing the physical things that create the environment where that spirit wants to be with you.
Very true.
The God of Israel is looking at the children of Jacob. He's like, go ahead. Keep feeding, Creflo and TD and all those guys, and you're going to continue to be at the bottom of the barrel until you understand I am the Lord.
Yes.
Right?
Yes,
and
exactly.
if you never get to that, you're not going to get out from under this captivity that you are. But thank the God of Israel, he brought us to the Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministries.
Exactly. And I'm sorry, one more thing I want to say about that too as well is it's also it's ironic too, because the story of the Passover is also, as we said before in the beginning, that's sort of like the big part on the God of Israel's resume to say, here's proof that I am the Lord.
Yes.
And for us to forget that part, no wonder we forget who he is and that he is the God, because that's his big signature to say, I am that God that did that. And that's proof that I could do anything.
Yeah.
Because those were the most amazing gods in Egypt, and I destroyed them.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? So if we forget that, then how could we even understand his greatness if we don't even understand the Passover?
Absolutely. So, because you're talking about the most powerful gods in Egypt.
Yeah.
Egypt being the most powerful nation in the world at that time. And the God of Israel took him down.
Yeah.
And to your point, we constantly see, what does the God of Israel constantly remind us of? I did what? I brought you out of Egypt. 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 I brought you out. He keeps saying it.
Yeah.
Because he wants us to remember, wow, at that point, that was the pinnacle of our forefathers seeing the strength of the God of Israel. And if you don't remember the pinnacle of the strength of the God of Israel, then you're going to get lost in the sauce, so to speak. You're going to get lost in the world because you forget the kind of strength and power that you have behind you.
Yes, and I think, again, even in this day and age, we as Jacobites, I'll say, we do get lost in the sauce a lot, so much so with Christianity, with all these other things, with even with the myths of other gods of Europe.
Yes.
We get lost in that sauce too as well. You know what I'm saying? We love those stories so much, and we forget about the Passover, something that was real. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And again, we get so lost in the amazingness of, oh my gosh, this nation, oh my gosh, this God, those other stories. We forget about the big story that is connected to you and how your God saved you. That
so
is
true, man.
That's amazing to me.
It's like we put on the garments of our captors.
Yeah, of course.
And we try to become our captors, and it's not going to work for us.
Yeah.
We have our own thing, and we just need to figure out the way to get back to it.
Yeah.
All right, so where are we?
Let's see.
He set the priests in their charges. I think I read verse 3 as well, right? Yeah. It shall not be on the burden of your shoulders. Serve now the Lord your God. So I'll go to 4.
All right.
Okay.
And prepare yourselves by the houses of your fathers after your courses, according to the writing of David, king of Israel, and according to the writing of Solomon his son. And stand in the holy place, according to the divisions of the families of the fathers of your brethren, the people, and after the division of the families of the Levites. So kill the Passover, and sanctify yourselves, and prepare your brethren, that they may do according to the word of the Lord by the hand of Moses. And Josiah gave to the people of the flock lambs and kids, all for the Passover offering, for all that were present, to the number of 30,300 bullocks. These were of the king's substance.
So that's, you could just see the magnitude of it, right?
Gosh, yeah.
You see the magnitude of it. So let's we'll fast forward a little bit. Let's go to like verse 11.
11, okay.
All right.
So verse 11, and they killed the Passover, and the priests sprinkled the blood from their hands, and the Levites flayed them. And they removed the burnt offering that they might give according to the divisions of the families of the people to offer unto the Lord, as it is written in the book of Moses. Beautiful. And so did they with the oxen.
Beautiful,
wow.
Beautiful, beautiful. And they roasted with fire, all the instructions, right? Mm-hmm. And I want to go back to Hezekiah's story for a second, because I think there was something really special about the way Hezekiah kept that Passover in the second month that we can't, I don't want us to leave tonight without touching on that. So let's see if we can find that real quick in the way. 23?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So
we're going to start at 22.
22, yeah. Let me start with 22. And Hezekiah spake comfortably unto all the Levites that taught the good knowledge of the Lord. And they did eat throughout the feast 7 days, offering peace offerings and making confessions to the Lord God of their fathers. Mm-hmm. And the whole assembly took counsel to keep other 7 days, and they kept other 7 days with gladness.
Wow.
14 days.
Yeah. I mean, but think about that. They were so pleased and so filled with emotion. And they did the first 7 days. They said, you know what? We got to do
We can't stop now.
Days.
Right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They were so happy with the whole being able to get back to it.
Yeah.
And the other part of this that is beautiful for me is, how in the world would we ever be able to, in the condition that we're in now, without the help of the God of Israel, keep feast unto him for that length of time, for that period of time? Like, we keep the Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread for those 7 days. Mm-hmm. But at some point, we have to get back to the world because the world keeps pulling at us, right? But imagine being in that situation where you are in one accord with your family and you're in one place with your brethren, and all of y'all are able to do that. Yeah. Man, I'm just not ready to stop this celebration.
That's amazing.
And I'm just not ready to stop this feast.
Yeah. And again, I can imagine, having not done it for so long, coming to realize, and again, being so ashamed of all things that you've been doing, and realizing, like, that's not enough. I don't even want to do the bare minimum. I want to go above and beyond because I really see that I was wrong, and I need to almost overcorrect now. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And absolutely. I think for me, that the God of Israel, I can imagine him sort of staring at them and saying, again, it's not exactly what I instructed, because again, you're doing it for the 14 days, but you can have that love and compassion for them because they're doing it out of love. And they're showing you, because I am so filled with love of you that I'm going to do this again.
Yeah, and I think it shows exactly that notion, that it wasn't just, they were like, oh, we found it. It said, do it 7 days. We're going to be, and I don't want to say robotic, but that we're going to be so, strict to the law that even though we have all this feeling and emotion in us, we're going to set that aside and not, feast anymore and not celebrate anymore. Yeah. But we're really going to pour out all these emotions to the God of Israel, so he sees. Yeah. And it's almost sad to me when we read this to see the emotion that our forefathers had at that time, and that by the time they get to Josiah, just a couple generations later, that was lost. Yeah. That all Hezekiah had to do was die. And all of a sudden, that was lost. And you all go out there and read it for yourself and see the progression of the kings and what happened to the nation even after Hezekiah died, and how they, again, slipped back into the dungeons, for lack of a better way of putting it. So now, we would be remiss if we didn't, go to the Second Testament. Some people like call it the Second Testament in our history, and show how even our brother Jesus, what Last Supper? Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. You have all these households with, the picture on their wall.
And they have no idea what that's supposed to be of. You know what I'm saying? They have no idea what that's about. They just say, "Oh, it's Last Supper," but they have no idea the context of what exactly was he doing at the time.
Exactly.
I just think that's really ironic. You know what I'm saying?
So I think we really need to tie it in.
Yeah, let's do
to that. What our forefathers did in the past and the instructions that Moses gave. So where are we going, man?
Let's go to Mark chapter 14.
Mark 14?
Yeah.
All right. Mark 14. Because again, Exodus 12 said forever.
Forever.
Yeah. Right? Mm-hmm. Forever. Yeah. All right. Chapter 14. All right.
Okay. And then again, for context, as we know, this is sort of towards a time when Jesus the Christ knows his end is near, right? And so he's observing this time. After 2 days was the feast of the Passover and of unleavened bread. And the chief priest and the scribes sought out how they might take him by craft and put him to death. But they said, not on the feast day, lest there be an uproar of the people. So again, just the context of the times. Again, of course, they're trying to kill Jesus the Christ, right? Mm-hmm. But again, they do know and observe that these are the times of the Passover. And Jesus the Christ, being an Israelite, is doing exactly what his brethren are doing, is observing these times. So if we skip down to verse 12.
Verse 12,
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the first day of unleavened bread, when they killed the Passover, his disciples said unto him, where wilt thou that we go and prepare that thou mayest eat the Passover? So again, we're seeing exactly that Jesus the Christ, even after all those years, all those generations, he understood forever.
Yeah.
Right? And again,
if anybody understands forever, it's to Christ, right?
Exactly. And again, we had the lesson about the Christ already before in the past. Again, we have the scripture in Exodus saying forever. Mm-hmm. We have the Christ, the only begotten Son, doing the Passover.
Yes.
Who is anybody to say we don't do the Passover?
Right.
Who is anybody to say that we no longer do the feast of
unleavened
bread?
And the thought just came to mind too. Right? Who was there when they kept that Passover that Moses and Aaron were instructed? Right?
Yeah.
Who was there with the children of Israel when they went into the wilderness?
Very true, yeah.
The Christ was there, right?
Yeah.
That was him.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
The scripture tells us that rock was Christ.
Right.
That's another lesson for another time, right? We're not going to go there. But the point being that Christ was there. So if he was there from the beginning,
he's not new to this. Right.
He's not new to this, and he's teaching his disciples. And not only is he teaching his disciples, because they already know, right? Because we just saw the chief priests that were trying to, trap him and kill him said, well, wow, we can't go grab him and try to kill him during the Passover. That's going to put the people into an uproar. So they knew of that. The practice was there. And now here is the Christ getting everything prepared, saying, we got to get it ready for the Passover. They even asked him, okay, so how are we going to prepare it? And he gives them the instruction.
I think that is amazing. And again, I just say it again, if the Christ at this point is doing the Passover and your pastor has not mentioned the Passover not one time.
Who is you?
Exactly.
Who is you?
Who are you listening to, right?
Who is not your pastor? Who's your pastor? To tell you.
Exactly.
I agree, man. I agree.
It's amazing to me to see again that the Christ who, again, as we said, is not new to this. He's been there from the beginning. Now he's there with them in this physical form, able to, be in this Passover with them in that way. Again, we've been doing this forever. And it's supposed to continue forever as the instruction is, right?
Amen.
And the Christ always says again, it's not me, it's my Father. It's not me, it's the Father. Because again, he listens to the instruction as well. You know what I'm saying? And he knows it's a forever thing.
Yes.
He knows that there is no one that can change that word forever.
Amen.
The God of Israel has said the word forever, it's forever.
It is what it is. Strike some likes, man.
Yeah.
Fire.
Yes, fire.
Signs.
Yes.
Sevens. If you haven't liked already, we're almost done. You should have liked a long time ago, so hit the like
Share
button.
Share all that stuff, yeah.
If you're hyped up and you're excited about what you're hearing and you want to learn more and you're not part of this nation and you're not already subscribed, click that link in the description box because we will be there to help you and to teach you. Yeah. And to teach you.
Yes.
Right? But it's just, I just get so hyped up and so excited when I'm reading this because again, it doesn't matter where in the book you go, there are certain things that you see that continue on.
Yeah.
And so for now, it does stand to reason that another nation that doesn't recognize the God of Israel would see this as a mere dinner or a supper or whatever it is they choose to call it and paint murals and those sorts of things have no understanding because they don't have that spirit. That comforter is not with them. The spirit of understanding is not with them. So there's no way that they would be able to discern what Jesus the Christ is actually teaching his apostles here.
Which, I think it makes sense, right? Like if
absolutely,
and we know historically how that comes to be with the Gentiles being taught in these things.
Right.
They don't know what happened in the wilderness.
Exactly.
They don't know what happened in Egypt. All they know is really from Jesus and on, right? So as time goes on, the story gets polluted more and more. You can imagine all their thinking is this was the last thing he had and he died. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
They don't know where he was and the context behind that.
Yeah.
And we as the people that were there in the beginning, we have adopted that way of thinking. We've adopted their perspective, right? Which is so ironic, you know what I'm saying, to say you had the original perspective, you had the full picture, and you chose to take out a small portion and have that be your perspective. Right. You chose the picture of the Last Supper as opposed to the Passover from the beginning.
That hurts,
magnified your God and magnified even you as a people.
Yeah,
so
that really hurts. That you chose to see your history through the perspective of someone else's eyes. Yeah. And you're choosing now to see who God is through the perspective of someone else's eyes. Yeah. When all you have to do is open your eyes and actually see who the true God is. Yeah. There's a reason he said, I am the Lord. Yeah. He didn't just say it flippantly. Like, you don't have to worry, guys. Yeah. Moses, you guys don't have to worry. I am the one. Yeah. I'll take care of all of this. Yeah. Hezekiah recognized that. Josiah recognized that. Jesus the Christ recognizes that. Yes. But like you said, there's no way that they would know the true meaning behind any of this, the true history behind any of this, because they don't have the foundation to stand upon. Yeah. They don't have that. Yeah. So of course they're going to make up, they're going to figure out a way to fill in that story. Yeah. So like you said, he had a dinner and then he died. So that was his Last Supper. Yeah. Because that's around the time we eat supper. So Jesus must have been having supper with his buddies.
Exactly, right.
And then he got grabbed.
Even that, to diminish the Passover as a supper. You know what I'm saying? Like,
you imagine?
Exactly. Yeah. As just a dinner.
Exactly. Especially when, like we talked about earlier, when you understand and see the historic significance of it, the spiritual significance of what it represents, to reduce it down to the food. Yeah. Because that's what supper is, right? Yeah. It's eating food. To reduce it down to the food, you've literally stripped away all the importance, all the significance of what that represents. And it takes me back to the scripture that says, if the salt has no savor, then what good is it? Yeah. It's not about the food. Yeah. And unfortunately, we know that. Yeah. And now we just have to figure out a way, or we have to pray that spirit of understanding comes back into our people.
Most certainly.
So that they can get back to seeing the full picture, the full perspective. Oh, wow, this is more than just the food.
Right. More than a dinner.
It's more than a dinner that he had.
Yeah.
This was actually the Passover.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if Jesus was keeping the Passover, then what am I doing?
Yeah, and if I was instructed to do it forever.
Exactly.
And knowing, again, the strength that I can attain, as we saw with Hezekiah, don't be foolish. go back to the Passover, and the God of Israel will take care of all your other problems.
Amen.
You know,
Amen.
I think it's again, it seems so simple, right?
Yeah, right. Us sitting here now, you know, ask me about this 25 years ago. I said, Jesus had the Last Supper. What are you talking about? You know,
exactly.
So, but we have to be really thankful to the God of Israel for the revelation of Himself unto us, because we could simply be like everyone else that's out there.
Yeah.
But because we have gotten the spirit of understanding and the spirit of truth, and a lot of it is because we sought it, right? We looked for it.
Yeah.
You know, and it came to us because we sought the God of Israel. We wanted to know who He was. Thank the God of Israel that He brought it to our generation, and so that we now have children and we raise them in this truth and this understanding, so that they have this understanding and they have the full picture, so they don't get caught up. Prayerfully, God willing, they don't get caught up in the trappings of the world, and they continue this so that it can go on forever.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Man, I think we should just go on like Hezekiah and, let's do another hour and a half. Hours. Yeah, let's do that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, man. Unfortunately, our time has come to a close. I feel like, there's just so much that we can tap into on this. But this is why the season of Passover is so beautiful, and why we get 7 days to do this, because there's so much that's there and so much that we can talk about. And again, we just really pray that, everyone that's out there that's seeking, that you have gotten something from this, that your understanding of the Passover and how it relates to you in this time, that you've gotten some sort of understanding as to why that's important to you, and why the things that are being taught at this point in the world are so contrary to what the scriptural teachings are. And we really have to get back to, the understanding of who the God of Israel is, so that we can worship Him in the right way and serve God in the right way. So, definitely. Jeff, I can't say anything but thank you for being here once again.
That was really fun.
This was really fun. I know that you're off to greater endeavors, and whenever you fly into this region of the world, we'll take some time out and we'll do this again.
Most definitely.
All right.
Agreed.
So again, thank you all for letting us into your homes this night. Join us tomorrow, Saturday at 2 p.m. for another riveting lesson from the Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministries. Like we said, we are here Fridays at 7:30 p.m. and on Saturdays at 2 p.m. Join us so that you can learn more about what it means to be a humble servant of the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. So with that, we bid you peace.